Hello, I'm Joe Houde. I own Houde Studio in Fredericksburg, Texas. We are a graphic design, photography, and internet advertising agency. Today I'd like to talk to you a bit about layer masks in Photoshop. Now, the first question is, what is a layer mask? And the simple answer is, it's a mask that goes on a layer. That doesn't tell us much, but what happens is you add a layer mask to a layer in an image, and then you can control what parts of that image are shown or hidden. If you have black in your layer mask, that's going to hide portions of the image that the mask is operating on. If you have white in your layer mask, it's going to reveal parts of your image. All right? Black hides, white reveals. Black hides, white reveals. Simple enough. We could stop right there, but I think a few examples might be in order. So, let's go over here to Photoshop. As you can see on the screen, we have this young lady. That layer is called Subject. Okay? And what we want to do is we want to go down here and add an additional layer. It comes in as a blank layer. If I turn her off, you can see there's nothing on that layer. It's just the checkerboard pattern that says I'm invisible. Okay, we go back to our layer and we get our marquee tool over here and we make a circle. All right, we're going to call it a circle. Now, let's go ahead and change the name of that layer so we know what we're doing. That layer is now called Circle. So if I go to the Circle layer and I go up here to Edit and Fill, we're going to fill that with a color, and we're going to choose that color. Happens to be this sort of a greenish color. If I do Command D, I can deselect that dancing ants around it, get the Move tool, and you can see I can move that circle anywhere. Over her, over here, wherever. Okay, let's say we want to remove parts of that circle. We're on the circle layer here. We get our eraser tool, which is probably the first thing that we might think of to erase part of that image, and we can go in here and we can erase part of that image. Now what it's done is it has actually removed those pixels. It's destructive. It destroyed those pixels. If we want them back, there's no way to go back and erase the eraser. So you have a couple of choices. You can go to your history palette and drop it down and step yourself back, or you can do Command or Control Z. That's Z as in zebra on your keyboard, and you can back that up. Take that destructive eraser out of the center. So what's the way to actually take part of that away and yet not destroy the image? Well, the simplest thing, we're going to select the circle and we're going to put a layer mask on it. And you do that by clicking down here on this little icon that says Add Layer Mask. If you click on it, it gives you a layer mask, and you notice nothing much changed there, only because this layer mask that we put on circle is white. And what do we say? White reveals, black hides. So we're white, nothing, it has disappeared. But if we want to make something disappear, we get our brush and we make sure that our colors are, click on the invert button here. We want black to be our color. Why? Because black hides. So now we can go in here. We are on the circle mask. You can tell you're on the mask because it's got this extra border around it. If I click here, I would be working on the image. Well, we'll just, for the sake of show, if you're accidentally on the image and you've got your black brush, you're just going to paint black right on your image, and you don't want to do that. So undo that, Command Z, get back over to the layer mask, Now we have got our black, we have got our brush. We can go in here and we can paint away on that circle, and it has taken away that area. It has hidden that area. It hasn't done anything to the image, but it's taken away the pixels in that area. So what's showing through is the white underneath it on her layer. So there we have it. Now, let's say before we couldn't erase the eraser, but now, since we're on a mask, if we switch our colors, invert to get a white brush, we could go back in here now and paint away parts of that. Say we didn't want it to touch all the way to the edge. So we can do that, and we can do this, and we still haven't harmed the image at all. We can paint away whatever we want to paint away and end up with what we thought we wanted in the first place. And I don't know why we would want this, but just as an example, if you paint white over the black, you can then clear away all of the things that you had created before. And there you go. We can go in here and actually remember the bracket keys. We have a brush selected. If we use the right bracket key, we can make that brush bigger and do this and clear away. And now we have a completely white mask over here, which means everything is coming through. All right. Now, if we go over here and select the mask and do Command I for invert, now we have a black mask and nothing is coming through. So we have our white brush again. We could go up here with our white brush and brush in here and bring back part of that circle, because we're now brushing white onto the all black mask. And so those are the two ways to hide or reveal objects in your picture, on your image. And so let's go here and we will just turn that layer off like so. Now, we've got the young lady. What can we do with her? Well, for one thing, we can go in here and we can select her. All right? You could go in and use the magic wand tool, and you could, let's go back to subject. We could go over here and we could select her background. But what happens a lot of times, if you're just using the magic wand tool, you can see over here, there's parts of her sweater are white, parts of her sweater or skirt down here, white. So you'd have to go back in and fill in all of those areas to get the proper selection. We will undo that, and we'll go up to the thing that is relatively new to Photoshop, and that is Select Subject. Release that. Adobe Sensei kicks in and actually makes a pretty good outline of this young lady. So if we want to use her now, we have a selection. If we want to use her as a mask, we can simply go down here and click, and now you can see the background has disappeared, and over here is the mask that basically has her cut out. And what that allows us to do, for one thing, is move her around like so, and also lets us go in and turn on a different background like so, and now she's standing in an office. And if we don't like her on that side, we can move her around. We can put her all the way over here if she's like a real estate person or something like that, or HR person, and she's talking about this office. It's a way to be able to actually move things around in your image and non-destructively put her in there. Now, if I hold down the Option key and click on the mask, you can then see the mask right in here. And if we zoom in here a little bit, you can see it did a pretty good job getting some of the hair around the edge. And let's go back to the regular size. Over here you see a little spot where it didn't quite catch that part of her sweater. So we have white, we have our brush, we can go right in here. Again, the bracket keys, we're going to use the left bracket key to make this a little smaller, making our brush smaller. Then we can go in here and just paint with white and take out that little bitty spot that it didn't find. And there we have it. And then we go back here and Alt or Option click on the mask, and we come back to our image. Okay, that's pretty interesting. There's something else we could do. We could add another layer, like so. Put that layer beneath her. And on this layer, we can go in and we could use our gradient tool. And I don't know if you've looked at this much, but the gradient tool has added a whole bunch of different gradients. And so you could go in here and you've got grays and pastels and neutrals. Let's look in neutrals. And let's see, we've got this gradient here. And so if we come over to our layer, our empty layer, and just drag a gradient across, we put her on a different background. And it's that simple. You want to try another one, you can go over here and let's do pastels. And let's see, here's an interesting one. We're going to take this one and we're going to drag it across. And you end up, I move this a little bit, you end up with different places for your gradient. You can get your circle gradient here and go behind her and give her a purple glow in the background. Anyway, the point is that you are able to have her cut out with a mask and put whatever you want behind her. Okay, now here's something else we could do. We could go in here and we could open up this layer, turn off this layer, and we put an image behind her, not unlike the office image, but in here we've got a circuit board and we want to do something different. We want to try and make her fade out, okay? So we can't put a second mask on here to go over the mask that's there. What we can do is we can select the subject layer and we can go up here and say new group from layers. Now it says layers, but we've only got one. What happens if we say that? It makes a group. It's a group of one. So now she's in this group one. Now group one can have another mask. So if we select group one, click down here, we put a layer mask on the whole group. It will affect the group. Only her layer in this group, but if there were more, it would affect all of them. Select the mask. We've got our gradient tool here. The gradient tool is going from white to invisible. We'll start at the bottom and we'll go up. And there, we have her sort of ethereally floating and disappearing as it goes down. So now let's take the subject layer and take it out of the group. So we put it up here. You'll see this little double line. That means it's out of the group, and then we can throw the group away, and we can turn this off, and we're back to just the cutout. Let's throw her mask away. So we've just got her now on her layer. Now we're going to go get the circle tool, the circle marquee. We're going in here and we're going to make a circle around her face, sort of like that, okay? Now, what happens if we have an active selection and we click on the mask tool down here, the mask icon, we add a layer mask, and that layer mask comes in with just her face showing. So let's go ahead and turn this layer back on. So now we've got her floating on that layer. We've got another image down here. This is a different image. We're going to put it above her, and we'll turn it on and you'll see it's a young man. So we can actually take this same layer mask that we have on her, hold down the Option key, move it up to his layer, and then he's in exactly the same position in the same mask. The masks are identical, so we can go back and forth between the two of them. You could turn this into a GIF or something like that, but the whole idea is you can share masks between images. So, him, her. All right. One other thing we can do, we'll go back to her, and we've got the mask here. But if we select the mask layer and go here to Filter and Blur and Gaussian Blur, you soften the edge of her circle. But you can do even more. You can go over here and really just make it a spotlight. So for things like wedding invitations or wedding photos and things like that, you could end up with a very soft-edged mask. And again, you have not harmed the image. It is non-destructive. And again, if we say, okay, that's what we want, you can certainly, once you have that, move it anywhere you want. Now there's one more thing I want to show you about masks. You can use type as a mask, but it's kind of tricky. Over here at the bottom of the tool menu, there's 3 dots. If you click on that, you'll see other things you could add to the toolbar. And what we're looking for is the horizontal type mask tool. Horizontal type mask tool. If you select that, you come over here and you click. It's going to come in with lorem ipsum, which is the default fake type. But you can go in here and select that, and I'm going to make it Garden Party. Okay? Now, we have Garden Party. We're going to click on it, and you'll see that it becomes a selection. It's not actually typing type in there. It's basically putting in a selection. Now, if you go in here and you try and move it, it's moving the whole thing. You don't want to do that. But if you go to your marquee tool, then if you click inside any one of the letters, you can move the whole thing around. So we're going to move this about the center. So we've got a selection that says Garden Party. All right? Now, as we learned, if you have a selection that's active and you click, I went down here to select this layer, which is a layer of plants. I want to put a mask on there to just cut out the letters. So if I go down here and click, presto, I have then cut out the letters to Garden Party using a mask on the layer with all the plants. And it is, of course, like all, movable. You can rearrange it, whatever. And basically that's it. But the trick is over here, finding that horizontal type mask tool. Okay, basically what we've got here is we've got her picture with her mask softened around the edges. We have the plants with their type mask, and that is then all together on top of the gradient that we put in earlier. Now here, let's do one more thing on this type layer. We can actually go in here and click on the properties and come up with a drop shadow. We can put a drop shadow on that type. We can come in and we can put a stroke on that type. We can bevel and emboss that type. We can do everything we could do with regular type, except it's filled with an image, which is really kind of cool. All right, that's about it. We've done all sorts of things with masks. There are other things you can do with masks. You can actually use the select a color range, use that as a mask. Any of the selection tools can be used to create a selection and then create a mask from that selection by clicking over here on the little icon that says Add Layer Mask. And that's what we've done. We've added layer masks. So that's many of the things we can do with masks in Photoshop. Remember the basics: black hides, white reveals. Masks can be shared. Masks can be put on a group to affect everything in that group. There's all sorts of things you can do with masks by putting different layers and cutting different holes in different layers. You can basically be looking down through your images, and you can see this part of this one and this part of this one and so on. So it's fun to play with, and basically one of the major tools in Photoshop. That's about all I've got right now, but thanks for listening, and thank you very much.